Welcome to the Eddie V Show live. Sometimes, some nights, it'll be more consistent in the future. Welcome on this eve of the Annunciation, March 24th. It is a Tuesday. Welcome. Great things to talk about tonight. A couple things on my mind. So let's get into it. The first thing I have to get into is what year is it? I'm joking. I keep hearing, and I've joked about this with other people, and I heard it again today, so I thought I'd joke a little more. People keep saying, Catholics keep saying, the church, which has been around for over 2,000 years. And I always say to myself when they say that, like, what year is it? Is my math, this is a math question, I guess, or maybe a historical question. What year did the church start? My understanding is 20 or 20. My understanding is 33 AD. And then, some scholars argue 30 AD, but either way, I'll go with the tradition. 33 AD, if we're going to be over 2,000 years as a church, where does that place us? 2,000 years from 33 AD. Where would that leave us? I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I believe that would be 2033 would be 2,000 years of church existence. So if we're in 2026, we've got 7 years to get to that sweet 2,000 mark. So it is not over. I know it might seem a little trite, but I'm like, where are we getting this from? I guess it might just be a cool thing to say, like over 2,000 years of church history. People get a little excited. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. That's just something that was on my mind, I guess. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about other things, other great things. The main thing I wanted to talk about today is the Legion of Decency, otherwise known as the National League of Decency or the Catholic League of Decency. And I specifically want to talk about it in relation to libido dominandi, as E. Michael Jones always discusses, but also in terms of feminism, technology, and Catholic boycotts in general. I remember when I was first coming into the church, however you want to describe it, maybe one day I'll kind of lay out my whole spiritual journey. But when I was about 24 years old, coming into the church, I mean, being very fired up and seeing how evil the worldly world is and the culture of America and other countries and subcultures, I was very passionate. And a big thing I was always kind of pushing, maybe in an amateur way, maybe in a brash way, was boycotting. In my mind, there's so many Catholics in the world. In numbers wise, you could argue we make up like, I don't know the numbers. I think it's a seventh. Maybe that's Christians in general, the seventh of the world. And I was like, we can leverage those numbers to do some sort of boycotting to affect change in the culture. That was my big idea. Obviously, I thought I invented it because, invented it because I'm a genius, and that's what geniuses do after they're in the church for like 2 years. Little did I know, and I didn't really know anything at the time, but little did I know that this had happened before. This was a thing. And a really good example of this is the Catholic, I'll keep that name going, the Catholic League of Decency. It was started in 1934. If you guys don't know, I'll give you a little background. It was started in 1934 by the Archbishop of Cincinnati, Ohio, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I believe it was that bishop. 1934, in response to basically pornography being shown in public movie theaters. Little did I know that movies started being shown in America in 1896. That was a lot earlier, actually, than I thought. But a problem really arose in America, specifically in America and in other countries too, but I'm going to talk about America because it has to do with the league. In about the late 1920s, you had this huge wave of borderline or just straight up pornographic films being shown in public movie theaters. So in response to this bishop, he created this league, and it wasn't something that, as far as I'm aware, is like a mandatory thing. All the league did was it united like local divisions of it that were autonomous. And all they did was they would take movies and they would rate them. They would have a rating system. This is kind of where the system today comes from, PG-13 and all that stuff. They had a rating system saying if this was basically morally degenerate and that Catholics should not see it. And this was huge. It was very influential. It wasn't something required. It was very local, stemming from this review that came out from the main league. And they would just rate the movies, and they had at high points 20 million Catholics, not including Protestant aligned people, Protestants also that didn't want this filth in the movie theaters. If any movie came out that was not approved by the league, saying that it was morally upright, usually in terms of pornographic images, you had around 20 million Catholics and some Protestants on top of that would refuse to see the movie. And this was costing the producers of these movies thousands of dollars because these people would refuse to see it. That's 20 million. That's a huge chunk, especially, 100 years ago. That's incredible. That's an incredible turnout. So a pushback I got when I was suggesting boycotting in my very young Catholic years was that boycotts don't work. But this one did work because we had, for the most part, from the 30s to the 60s, a very clean movie theater. Very clean movie theater. And it wasn't something that was forced. It was just something that was very... It had a solid head. It had a bishop, and then it was very grassroots, where the people were just like, we trust what this bishop has established, and we're going to follow it. So then, what happened? Where's the league? I think technically it actually I don't know if there's the actual league because there's things that came after it. We don't have to get into that. But so what happened in the 60s? What failed? If this thing was so great for 30 years. So basically, what I've been able to dig up in my brief research is that with Vatican II, and Vatican II, legitimate council of the Catholic Church, but there was definitely a change of culture, a change of incarnate belief. Not everything changed, but there was sort of different accidental changes, and we could argue maybe some deeper stuff, but we can get into that another episode. But with this shift of culture during and post Vatican II, which also had to do with other stuff happening in the world, there's a lot of shifts going on. After Vatican II, this league started to be ignored for whatever reason, and eventually had no effect. There were 3 movies that kind of broke the league. One was called The Pawnbroker. The other was called, I believe, Rosemary's Child. And the next one, let me see if I have these here. I don't want to get these wrong for you. They were The Pawnbroker, Rosemary's Baby, and The Graduate. The Graduate being a pretty famous movie. I don't want to say, it might be Al Pacino. So these 3 movies kind of broke in, and E. Michael Jones has done a great job talking about specifically The Pawnbroker, how it kind of used the Holocaust as, this untouchable relic or religion from World War II as a defense so that it could basically show nudity in the movie theater. And with the weakening of the league, whether directly caused by Vatican II or the culture surrounding Vatican II or the spirit of Vatican II, however you want to call it, the league had lost such influence because basically the people were like, oh, we're rolling a different way. We're with the world. We're welcoming the world, welcoming the world's art. They didn't want to boycott anymore, which is really interesting. So these 3 movies showing, I've read the description of Rosemary's Baby. I have not seen them. I haven't seen any of those movies, but I've read the description of Rosemary's Baby. It sounds like a crazy movie, and I don't recommend seeing it. But yeah, so we have, and it's just like, oh my goodness. And, councils have happened before, and there's, councils are huge things, and there's always a lot of controversy surrounding them. But I think we got to get to a certain point, not rejecting the council. A lot of the documents are really great. I think Pope Paul VI is quoted as saying there's nothing dogmatic in it. It's a pastoral council, which, No anathemas. I'm always very disappointed in that. I love a good anathema. But I think we need to recognize as a church, and it seems like some people are recognizing and then going way too far, like the SSPX and different groups like that. Obviously, the Sedefacant is always going to doing the most, doing too much. But we need to recognize that there's a lot of things from the spirit of this council or this council that are negatively impacting how Catholics are interacting with the world. And I would argue this: I would like to and this is a call. I haven't thought about it too much, but I would like to reinstitute something like the Catholic League of Decency. I think I mentioned on an episode, I watched this. I didn't watch the full thing, maybe a third of it the other day, and it was awful. It probably made. I haven't seen those movies, but it probably made The Pawnbroker, Rosemary's Baby, and The Graduate look like Teletubbies. Because this movie, already a little bit into it, was awful in terms of the content. And in terms of the gay stuff, I'm so sick of the gay stuff, and I'm sure that's been said 1,000 times. But does every movie have to have a gay person? It's just crazy. Anyway, kind of getting off topic. I would like to reinstitute some sort of Catholic League of Decency where we can get a real boycott and boycott movies. Wouldn't that be incredible? Because you know what happened when The Passion came out? Do you know what happened when The Passion came out? The Passion, directed by Mel Gibson. There were boycotts. Interesting, right? Didn't work, gladly. You can look up that for yourself. It's very interesting. But I would like to institute these boycotts. I would like to institute a movie boycott. And I think Catholics, we need to get on board. We need to hurt. You have to embrace the cross as a Catholic. And all we're asking here is to not watch certain movies. And I think it would be a really great thing if we really went hard on boycotting streaming services. Because I'm sick and tired of we have so many Catholic influences, and I guess I'm trying to be one of those. But we never have specific things that we do. It's always just outrage at what the Pope says. And then long form, no offense to these people, I'm sure some of it is necessary, but long form interviews about random topics why don't the Protestants like Mary, which is probably a great topic. But we need actionable items. We need to suffer. We need to suffer for the Lord. We need to suffer for the church. We need to suffer as the body, the mystical body of Christ. All I'm asking for is let's not watch certain movies. Even if the movie's a great movie, objectively in art form, if it has morally depraved content, why are we uncomfortable being as a Catholic unit? And let's invite the Protestants in if we can to do this as Christians and destroy this stranglehold Hollywood has on basically producing pornography. I don't know if you guys have seen some stuff from HBO. It's disgusting. And there is obviously a pornography problem. There is sexual addiction problems in this country. And this would be a great way for Catholics to fight it. If we want to fight, I'm going to get out in the weeds here, but if we want to fight abortion, what's a great way to fight abortion? Is to promote chastity. How can we promote chastity practically? I mean, you can yell at people in the streets, I guess, and tell them, but we can also act with our wallets, with our money, right? A March for Life is great, but really, what are you doing in a March for Life? You're not hitting anyone's wallet. That is for sure. And you might cause minor inconvenience to some people. But that's really it. You're not, I would argue, and maybe this is cynical of the March for Life movement. I'm sure they're doing great things. But you're not hitting it where it hurts. You're not hitting them where it hurts. The money, that's what people, they'll fold on. They'll fold on the money. Right? As long as the pornographic movies are making money, they're going to keep pushing them. As soon as they start to get hit in the wall a little bit, I guarantee it might take a little bit, but they'll start thinking twice about it. And then I want to relate this to something E. Michael Jones has brought up. I don't agree with a lot on all things with E. Michael Jones, but I do think he is a great mind, a great culture warrior. But it is interesting. You can see, because we are in a great battle as Christians with the Jews and the Muslims. There's just no argument about it. And the Muslim thing has been beat to death, but we are in a big battle with the Jews, which E. Michael Jones has also discussed greatly. But I want to read this quote just so you guys get the point. Because who are the people producing movies in the 30s? The Jews. The Jews are the majority of the studios then and now. And if you're paying attention, Nick Fuentes has been covering this amazingly, incredibly, is that you have the Jews basically buying up like all media in the US. And Netanyahu has talked about this openly about we are the eighth front. The American public is the eighth front where they need to basically hammer us with propaganda. But I just want to read this, and I've read this to people personally. This is from Al Goldstein, who was he's big in the pornographic industry. He ran a famous magazine called, I'm not going to say what it's called. You can look it up if you want. Don't look it up, but if you want to read about him, definitely do. But this is a quote from him. This is a quote that he did for a 2004 book called XXX Communicated, a Rebel Without a Shoal. This is Luke Ford's conversation with Al Goldstein. And he says, Ford asked Goldstein why Jews were dramatically overrepresented in the porn industry. And he answered, the only reason that Jews are in pornography is that we think that Christ sucks. Catholicism sucks. We don't believe in authoritarianism. Pornography thus becomes a way of defiling Christian culture, and as it penetrates to the very heart of the American mainstream and is no doubt consumed by those very same wasps, its subversive character becomes more charged. End quote. And then it says, Ford then asked, what does it mean to you to be a Jew? To which Goldstein responded, it doesn't mean anything. It means that I'm called a kike. Ford also asked, do you believe in God? Goldstein said, quote, I believe in me. I'm God. And please forgive me, God, for saying this. Screw God. God is your need to believe in some super being. I am the super being. I am your God. Admit it. We're random. We're the flea on the butt of the dog. End quote. That is what we're up against. Sorry, I was reading on my phone there. That is what we're up against, right? I'm not saying all Jews think that way, but the Jews control a big chunk of American media, and they did control a big chunk of the studios in the 30s. And that's when the pornography was filing into the movie theaters. So we need to recognize that we're in a battle against flesh and blood, but also spiritual powers. The Muslims and Jews, there's some things we can team up on. There's a lot of things that we can't. And you see an example of that. And boycotts, and the big thing I want to get across is boycotts work. This boycott was effective for 30 years. There's a lot of Catholics in this world, a lot of Christians in this world, especially the things that we can connect on. We can be a power force, but we need to get organized. That's what we need. And we need to brainstorm how we can do that. I'm brainstorming how I can be of use in that. But be thinking about that in your own personal lives. I always want to have actionable items. Be thinking about that in your personal life. How can I contribute? And I know personally it's gonna be nothing, but like suffer a little. And every person's gonna have to do their little part and to get the ball rolling. And be willing to talk about this with other Christians. It's a very simple thing that we can sacrifice for our Lord and for the church and for the salvation of souls. Get rid of those streaming services, right? Get rid of them. Get rid of any of those streaming services that are promoting this nonsense. HBO should be gone, straight up. Should be gone from any Catholic Christian household. It's disgusting stuff. So yeah, boycotting. We should take it back. And, this is a good first start, but there's other things that we can boycott. And maybe in the future, I'll talk about more of that stuff. But I want to leave with that. I don't want to get too in the weeds because then you'll just forget what I said. Boycott pornographic and immoral videos, movies, streaming services. The other thing I want to talk about is it was kind of related to this, but an interesting little side quest, you could say, is the relationship between feminism and pornography. And I haven't done the deep dive yet on this. I don't know if I will. Maybe it's just something I'm observing and I'm going to keep kind of thinking about it, soaking it in. But as feminism rises in the 1800s, you already had pornography rising a little bit in the 18th century, but it's going to, start uplifting in the 1800s. And then you're going to have an explosion of pornography, obviously in the 1900s. And I would argue an explosion in feminism in the 1900s as well. Very loose correlation, but I could see, and then hear me out on this, hopefully. The relationship between feminism, pornography, and technology, I feel like is undeniable. Feminism, why is feminism in there? I think most people can see how technology and pornography and sexual degeneracy is related because technology just allows for greater access. And then you could argue technology also makes us more bored, more comfortable, less able to travel and be outside in God's nature, more city, more cars, more planes. We're more in human established spaces. But feminism would lead to what's going on with feminism? Women are trying to be men, to get the privileges of men, and there's a certain contempt for men too. Whereas before, a woman, or at least a wife, was supposed to be submissive to their husband. The marital debt, as taught by Christianity, specifically, honestly, by Catholicism, so all these other Christian denominations, they just fall off, was taught that it was due from both sides. The husband wanted the marital debt, it was due from the wife. If the wife wanted the marital debt, it was due from the husband. This notion is completely gone, in my understanding. There are so many cucked men in this society who, if you even, even, I mean, I think Nick was talking about this today. Like, people are arguing, and maybe Tim Gordon was talking about this. Like, women are pretending that men don't like sex or don't want sex, or that's not chastity or something. It's like, bro, that's crazy. Men and women are attracted to each other. Just get over it. That's why you have cloistered nuns. That's why you have monks that live on an island and never see a woman. I think that was like one monk. But there's a reason for this. It's not like we're just amorphic and we're not attracted to each other. We're just like these nubs that only like the super crazy lustful are. No, it's like we are attracted to each other. Where was I going with that? I don't even remember. Anyway, I think there's a relation with feminism. As feminism grows, women become just more adverse to submissiveness and more adverse to receptiveness to the male sex. And I mean the gender. And as that continues, where does the man turn to? Not all men are like St. Francis of Assisi. But I will say, St. Francis of Assisi, even him, this holy man, the mirror of Christ, there's a scene that St. Bonaventure talks about where he's being assailed by temptations and he runs into the outside. It's snowing. He jumps into a snowbank to eliminate his temptation to sexual impurity. And he's building little snowmen, saying oh, you want a family, you want a wife, you can't even take care of your snow family. It's really endearing scene. But anyway, I keep getting off track here. What are these nuns doing? What are these monks doing there? That's not where I was. Feminism. Oh, they are rejecting the male sex. Males, where do they turn to? If they're not, like a St. Francis of Assisi, they're not super chaste, they're not super virtuous, they're trying to grow in virtue. Is if it's easily accessible, it's like pornography is easily available. I'm used to being with my wife intimately, and now she has gone full feminist and is refusing intimacy with me. Maybe because I said something to her a little, firmly. I said she couldn't do this or that thing. And now she's taking it out on me. I'm just making up scenarios. That does happen though, straight up. And so that happens, and men turn to other things. Not right, but that makes sense to me. And then technology is just this, and I've described it before, is it is making it so easily accessible to many people. Easy, free, cheap, whatever. It's also being pushed by social media, movies, etc. Men are having a hard time of it. And then even modesty in society in general is just totally being obliterated. Women just go outside wearing nothing. And then they're they're naked, exaggerating. They're naked, and then there'd be men look at them. They're like, oh, you're a disgusting pig. It's men are attracted to women. Sometime, somehow, some way, we're going to have to get people to get over that. And vice versa too. Women are attracted to men. Surprise, surprise. So we need to really build, I'm just preaching the choir here. We really need to build safeguards on that stuff. We need to recognize the relationship between feminism, technology, pornography, sexual degeneracy. But the big thing I want to get across here is the boycott. Be thinking about what you can boycott. And I think it makes life fun when you have to find entertainment with this specific boycott because you have to move around the filth. That makes it fun. It's not fun to just go home and turn the TV on. It's not fun. Sometimes it's fun, but it's not fun. Let's get a little creative here. All right. Was there anything else I want to talk about? I mean, the Iran war is still going on. So crazy. But I think that is it. I got some other subjects, but we'll get to them in a later date. I don't think I'll be back tomorrow night. So maybe Thursday night I'll be back. We're just getting this thing going. Camera's in, but it's at another place. I got to go get it. But this has been working, hopefully. And a friend of mine told me the sound was good. So tell your friends about this. You as well, like, subscribe, tell your friends. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you want me to talk about something, you disagree with something. Let me know. I want to be corrected. That's how I learn. And let me know what you think about the boycotting idea. If you're like, that's a great idea, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, or you're just not about it. Let a brother know. And I got to remember, no, maybe not. I'll talk about it later. I was going to say I got to pray at the beginning. I don't know if I'm going to pray in the video, but I do need to remember to pray right before the video starts, before I go live. But I will say, as for now, God bless you. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you guys on the next sode. Good night.